Hello, my name is Peter Truax, and this is my data project, final project for CSC530 data analysis class. Um, uh, my project involves a data set from St. Martin's University's firewall, and we're going to do a cyber threat analysis on the data that we're pulling from this firewall. So without further ado, let's take a look at what our network actually is here on campus. And that's this document here. You can see down at the bottom we have students and staff and faculty. We have the core switch and core router. And then we have a Palo Alto firewall. So this firewall is actually very, very advanced. It will identify threats, it will identify viruses, malware, and other vulnerabilities that it sees. It looks at every single bit of information that goes through to the internet and from the internet to this device. And every single bit is then analyzed and made into a stream called a session. And these sessions are recorded in a log file, and this log can be then analyzed. So I pulled data out of the firewall. I have, I want to say, back to October of 2021, I pulled data for. But in order to limit the data set, I only did the last 30 days. So let's take a look at the actual data. Where is it? There it is. And so this is my document that I made using the data. Let me try to zoom in a little bit here. Well, that didn't work. There we go. That's better. Okay. So we have, the environment that's out there. If you don't have anything in between you and the internet, it is free for all. There is all kinds of stuff that comes in and it gets blocked or allowed, and just depends on what you have. But with our firewall, we're able to see what is coming in and who is doing it and where it's coming from. So it actually will tell you the source country of the data that's coming in. It does a lookup of the IP addresses that it sees. So this is going to give us some useful data that we can analyze with. So the questions I wanted to ask are, what country is the top attacker for St. Martin's University? And what techniques are used to try to attack the university with? So, and this data that's in this data set will be able to tell us this information. So in order to do this, you pull out a CSV file of the data, and you can select which columns you want to look at and save. And so I did that and saved it into a CSV file, and we'll look at the data here in a second. So, but we pulled in libraries of Dippler, ggplot2, tidyverse, readr, lubridate. I use lubridate because we have a timestamp, and so we'll be pulling the dates out of that for some of the analysis. Then I did a read CSV so I could pull it into a data frame here. And I then filtered it for the critical. I only wanted to look at the critical data. It was just this raw data file was 400,000 rows of data. So I just wanted to pull out the critical data that we wanted to look at. The critical ones are the worst threats that it sees, and stuff that can take over your computer if you didn't have a firewall in between you and it. And so we do a summary. We got 2,768 rows. We're looking at the timestamp, the action, application, destination address, destination country, destination port, IP protocol, severity, source address, source country, source port, threat content type, and the threat ID. threat IDs are going to be one of the ones we're going to look at here. So, and then we do an STR on this data set. We've got a timestamp. Pretty much everything's a character, except for a destination port is a number, and source port is a number. And you can see our timestamp is a character as well. So, and then this is the format that the timestamp comes in at. So we have to use a like Lubridate to extract the day out of that. All right. So, in order to do this, so these are all the different columns. All right. So the first chart is we're going to answer the question: what countries are attacking St. Martin's University the most? So we have threat countries. We want to take the data set threats and group it by the source country. And then we want to summarize it by adding a count to it. And so we're counting the source countries. And then we want to reorder it so that it's by the top source country. And then all my all of my graphs, I could not add color to it because it wanted to add a legend to the graph, and it just made it look horrible because it was just too much data on the page. So you will see all my graphs are black and white because of that. All right, so threat count by country. Here's the big ones, and you can see down at the bottom of the graph is a count. Let me see if we can zoom just a smidge out. Fine. Oh, there we go. Let's try 150%. There we go. Okay, so we have the count at the bottom, and we have the country on the side. China was our number one, and then we have the Netherlands, Iran, Russia, United States, and I don't know how to pronounce that. That country, and Brazil. And but China is by far the largest, and I would like to analyze that further of what that country is. So we're going to look at that in a minute, but right now we want to look at the second chart, which answers the second question. What vulnerabilities are being attacked the most? You know, what things are hitting us? What types of devices is it looking for? Things like that. So, but we can use the threat ID to find this out. And so I made a new little data frame called threat IDs, and I grouped it by threat ID, and I counted them. And then we put it into a ggplot graph. And you can see here, this is the reason why the legend would not work, because these are quite long and quite wordy. And so, yeah, so it's going to be a black and white graph. Sorry, guys. So Realtek Jungle SDK remote code execution vulnerability. That's our top one that we have. And there's a whole bunch of others that we get hit with as well, but that's the number one right now. And that is a vulnerability if you have certain versions of Realtek audio drivers on your computer. They can actually take over your computer from elsewhere, you know, in this case from China, and take over your computer and do whatever they want with it. So it is obvious that this is a critical vulnerability that we definitely want to block, and it is. So all of these that you see here are all blocked by the firewall. Anything critical is being blocked by the firewall. So you don't have to worry about it, but it is pretty scary what's out there. So, okay, so next one. I wanted to see how often China attacks St. Martin's University. Like, is it on a schedule, or is it always, or is there something to it? I don't know. Well, let's take a look. So I took I filtered by the source country of China, and then we mutated to format the date as just a number rather than the whole timestamp. So I just wanted the day of the month, and so make a graph of all the different days. Fortunately, the graph that comes out, it only puts them every 10 days for some reason, but it is what it is. And so as you see on the graph, these are all the threats that came from China, and So on the 1st and the 5th, we got hit with something pretty massive, over 500 in one day. And then all the others were definitely getting hit every single day, except for the 24th for some reason. They didn't hit us with anything that day. So you could say that it's pretty constant that we're getting hit with something every day from China, but these two big ones are on a certain day for some reason. But it doesn't look like there's a pattern to it. So then we have, then I wanted to ask, so what vulnerabilities does China hit us with? So, and that way we can kind of see, what's going on. And so I made another graph and called it China IDs. And so we're grouping by the threat IDs, but we're pulling it just for China and then counting them. So, and then this is I did a STR on it just to see make sure I've got data in it. And yeah, I do. So that gives me 11 different instances or different types of vulnerabilities that it hits us with. And all right, so then I made a ggplot and the China threat ID. So the number one, Realtek Jungle SDK remote code execution. So that's, that is what we saw in the total, that is the largest, but then it also turns out that China is the one that really hit us with those. So yeah, that's the biggest one. But in addition to that, you can see that we also have a Netgear remote code execution vulnerability, a home router execution vulnerability, and a D-Link remote code execution vulnerability too. So all of those are home routing device vulnerabilities. Obviously, these are automated systems that are just looking out on the internet for something that's vulnerable. But if you've got one of these devices, you probably need to update your update your firmware, because these have been proven to be vulnerable to attack. And so if you've got one at home, you want to update it. So, all right, so that was my last graph. Looks like China is hitting us hard with the Realtek, but we're blocking it. So that is my analysis, and thank you for watching my video.